I, 35M, have been living in my current house for the past 8 years in a quiet suburban neighborhood. When I was house hunting back then, this property immediately caught my eye because of its beautiful backyard with a large in-ground pool. My wife Sarah, 33F, and I both love hosting gatherings, so it seemed perfect for us. We spent a significant amount of our savings on this house, but it was worth every penny. The neighborhood was great initially. Most residents were friendly, middle-aged couples or families with kids. We never had any issues until Karen, 42F, moved in next door about 3 years ago with her husband Mike, 45M, and their 2 kids, Emma, 12F, and Josh, 15M. At first, everything seemed fine. Karen brought us a homemade casserole when they moved in, and we helped them unload some furniture. Mike seemed like a decent guy who worked long hours at his law firm, so we didn't see him much. I work from home as a software developer, which gives me flexibility with my schedule. Sarah works as a high school teacher, and we've never had any children of our own, but we're very close to my nephew Tyler, 16M. Tyler's story is a sad one. He lost both his parents, my sister Amy and her husband Jack, in a horrible car accident when he was just 7 years old. A drunk driver hit their car head-on one rainy night when they were returning from a dinner date. Tyler was at home with a babysitter when it happened. After the accident, my parents took custody of Tyler, but Sarah and I have been like second parents to him ever since. He lives with my parents during the week because their house is closer to his school, but he spends almost every weekend with us. We've converted one of our spare bedrooms into his room, decorated exactly how he likes it. Tyler's a great kid, straight A student, plays basketball, and despite everything he's been through, he maintains a positive attitude that amazes me. Last month, I decided to host a pool party for Tyler's 16th birthday. He's never had a proper birthday party since losing his parents, usually just small family dinners. But this year, he made some good friends at school and joined the basketball team, so we thought it would be nice to do something special. The party was planned for a Saturday afternoon in July. We put a lot of effort into planning it. Sarah and I spent weeks organizing everything, from the decorations to the food menu. We wanted to make it perfect for Tyler. We invited about 20 of his friends from school and the basketball team, some family members, and a few neighbors we're close with. Everyone seemed excited about it, and we sent out proper invitations 3 weeks in advance to make sure people could plan accordingly. The day after we distributed the invitations, Karen showed up at our door. She had this weird smile on her face as she asked if her kids, Emma and Josh, could join the party. I was taken aback because we hardly knew her kids. They never interacted with Tyler despite living next door for 3 years. In fact, whenever Tyler tried to be friendly with them, they usually ignored him. I politely explained to Karen that it was a private birthday party specifically for Tyler and his friends, and we were trying to keep the guest list limited to people he's close with. She didn't take the rejection well. Her smile dropped instantly, and she muttered something under her breath as she walked away. Looking back, this was probably the moment everything started going downhill. A week before the party, things started getting weird. Karen began stopping by almost daily with various complaints about the upcoming party. First, it was about potential noise. She claimed her kids need absolute quiet to do their summer homework. I assured her it would just be a regular afternoon party, nothing crazy. I even adjusted the timing to end by 8 p.m. instead of the originally planned 10 p.m. to accommodate her concerns. But that wasn't enough for her. Then she started complaining about parking, saying our guests would block access to her driveway. I showed her our plans for guest parking, all along our side of the street and in our driveway. She then switched to worrying about kids screaming in the pool, claiming it would trigger her migraines. With each visit, her complaints got more ridiculous, and her tone got more aggressive. 2 days before the party, Karen escalated things by calling the HOA. She made formal complaints about potential noise violations, parking issues, and even claimed we were planning to serve alcohol to minors. John, 55M, the HOA president, visited me to discuss the situation. He's a reasonable guy who's lived here for decades. I showed him all our party plans, confirming everything was within guidelines, the noise ordinances, parking arrangements, and our strict no alcohol policy. I even showed him the family-friendly playlist we'd created for the party. John seemed satisfied and left after reminding Karen that preemptive complaints about rule violations that hadn't occurred yet weren't valid. The day of the party arrived, and we were determined not to let Karen's behavior ruin Tyler's special day. Sarah spent the morning decorating the backyard with basketball-themed decorations and setting up the food table with all of Tyler's favorite snacks. The weather was perfect, sunny but not too hot. Everything was going great. The kids were having a blast in the pool, the parents were chatting and enjoying the food, and the music was at a reasonable volume that you could barely hear from the street. Around 3 p.m., I noticed Karen standing in her yard with her phone raised, recording our party over the fence. She was making exaggerated gestures and talking loudly into her phone about how noisy we were being, even though the kids were just laughing and playing normally. A few minutes later, 2 police cars pulled up outside our house. Karen had called them claiming there was a major disturbance. The officers were professional but seemed annoyed about being called out for nothing. They walked around our property, noted that the music was at an appropriate level, and observed that everyone was behaving properly. One officer even commented that it seemed like a well-organized, family-friendly event. They left after warning Karen about making false complaints, which only made her more furious. That's when Karen really went nuclear. She started spamming our neighborhood Facebook group and WhatsApp chat with messages about how we were destroying the peace of the community. She posted heavily edited clips from her recordings, making it seem much louder than it actually was. She claimed there were drunk teenagers diving dangerously in the pool, completely false. We had adult supervision at all times and no alcohol, and that we were playing explicit music. We literally had a Disney and pop hits playlist. But what really got to me was when she started bringing up Tyler's parents. She wrote a long post saying how irresponsible we were for hosting a pool party for a kid who lost his parents in an accident, suggesting we were traumatizing him further. She even implied that we were using Tyler's tragedy to justify hosting wild parties. This was a new low, using a child's trauma to push her agenda. Several neighbors who weren't at the party started commenting supportively on her posts, and some even began treating us differently when we passed them on the street. Despite all this drama, the party ended as planned at 8 p.m. We made sure everything was cleaned up properly, and all the kids got home safely. What made it all worthwhile was Tyler's reaction. He hugged us tightly and said it was his best birthday ever. He mentioned that it was the first time since losing his parents that he felt like he could truly celebrate and be happy on his birthday. The next morning, we woke up to find Karen had put up massive signs in her yard with messages like "Stop noise pollution," "No to dangerous pool parties," and "Protect our children's peace." She'd also started a petition to ban pool parties in the neighborhood, and to our surprise, several neighbors had actually signed it, despite pool parties being explicitly allowed in our HOA rules. The whole situation has created a huge divide in our previously peaceful neighborhood. Some neighbors have reached out privately to support us, saying Karen is being ridiculous and controlling. Others have started avoiding us, apparently believing Karen's exaggerated stories. I refuse to let her dictate what we can do in our own backyard, but this constant harassment is getting exhausting. Update 1. It's been 3 weeks since my last post, and the situation has gotten significantly more complicated. I honestly wasn't planning to post an update, but something unexpected happened that changed everything. Last weekend, while Sarah was visiting her parents, I was doing some yard work when Mike, Karen's husband, came over. This was unusual because in the 3 years they've lived next door, Mike has never visited without Karen. He looked tired and stressed, nothing like the confident lawyer I was used to seeing leaving for work every morning. Mike spent almost 2 hours talking to me, revealing things about their family that put the whole situation in a new light. Apparently, when Karen was 14, her younger brother nearly drowned at a neighbor's pool party. He was underwater for several minutes before anyone noticed, and though he survived, he spent weeks in the hospital. Karen, who was supposed to be watching him that day, has carried the guilt ever since. Mike explained that they've moved 3 times in the past decade, each time because Karen couldn't handle living near neighbors with pools. He apologized for never telling us this before, saying he should have warned us when they first moved in. He also admitted that he's been working late hours partially to avoid dealing with Karen's increasing anxiety about our pool. While I sympathize with Karen's past trauma, I told Mike that trying to control neighbors' activities isn't a healthy way to deal with it. He agreed but asked if we could be more understanding and maybe give advance notice before any pool gatherings. I explained that while I'm willing to be considerate, I won't let someone else's unresolved issues dictate what we can do in our own backyard. The conversation with Mike had barely ended when things took another disturbing turn. Through the grapevine, I learned that Karen had been spreading vicious rumors about Tyler. She told parents at the local school that Tyler was a troubled teen who threw wild parties at our house when we weren't home. She claimed he invited random people over to swim at midnight and that she'd seen drugs being passed around. These lies were particularly harmful because Tyler is in the same school as her kids, Josh and Emma. We discovered that Josh had been showing other students edited clips from Karen's recordings of our party, adding captions about Tyler being a bad influence. Emma had been telling younger students that Tyler's parents died because he was being difficult and they were driving distracted while arguing about his behavior, a cruel and completely fabricated story. Tyler, who had finally started feeling comfortable at school and making friends, became the target of whispers and stares. Some parents told their kids to avoid him, believing Karen's lies. His basketball teammates, who were at the party and knew the truth, stood by him, but others weren't so loyal. The bullying got so bad that Tyler started making excuses to skip school. We had no choice but to involve the school administration. We had a meeting with the principal, showing her the original, unedited videos of the party and providing statements from adult guests who were present. The principal was horrified by the situation, especially when we explained about Karen's harassment campaign. She called in Josh and Emma for a serious discussion about spreading malicious rumors and promised to address the bullying immediately. Several neighbors who initially sided with Karen changed their stance after hearing about the bullying. The Andersons, who had signed her petition, came over to apologize and remove their names. They mentioned that Karen had painted a very different picture, claiming we were running some kind of teenage party house that was bringing down property values. Even Mike seems increasingly uncomfortable with his wife's behavior. He confided that Karen's obsession with our pool has started affecting their marriage. She spends hours watching our backyard through their window, documenting every time someone goes near the pool. She's joined multiple community Facebook groups just to post about the dangers of pool parties, often using Tyler's situation as an example of irresponsible pool ownership. Concerned about escalation, I installed security cameras around our property. It turned out to be a wise decision. Last week, our cameras caught Karen trying to throw bags of garden waste and dirt into our pool in the middle of the night. When confronted with the footage by the HOA president, she claimed she was just picking up trash that had blown into her yard, despite the video clearly showing her bringing the bags from her garage. The HOA issued her a warning, but I'm worried about what she might do next. Mike apologized again for her behavior and offered to pay for pool cleaning, but the issue goes beyond just cleaning up some dirt. Karen's fixation on our pool has evolved from mere complaints into active attempts to make it unusable. Sarah suggested we should file for a restraining order, but I'm hesitant to escalate things legally. Tyler is already stressed enough about the situation, and I don't want to make things worse for him at school. For now, we've decided to keep documenting everything and maintaining clear boundaries. The whole situation feels like it's building towards something bigger, and I can't shake the feeling that we haven't seen the worst of it yet. Mike's revelations about Karen's past helped me understand her behavior better, but understanding doesn't make it acceptable. I'm trying to be sympathetic to her trauma while also protecting my family from her increasingly hostile actions. Continued in next update, Update 2. 2 months have passed since my last update, and the situation with Karen reached a breaking point last week in a way none of us expected. What happened next exposed years of lies and manipulation that shocked everyone in the neighborhood. It started during our quarterly community meeting. These meetings are usually boring discussions about landscaping and parking rules, but this one was different. Karen had put pool safety regulations on the agenda and was planning to present her petition. But before she could start her presentation, something unexpected happened. A woman named Linda, 50F, was there as a guest of the Wilsons from 2 doors down. As soon as Linda saw Karen, her face went pale. During the break, Linda approached me and introduced herself as Karen's former neighbor from their old neighborhood in Vermont. She had recently moved to our city for work and was visiting the Wilsons, her old college friends. When they mentioned the ongoing pool drama with their neighbor Karen, Linda realized it was the same Karen she knew. After the meeting, Linda shared some disturbing information with me, the HOA board, and a few other neighbors. Karen and her family hadn't just moved here randomly 3 years ago. They had left their previous neighborhood after similar conflicts with multiple families. Linda pulled up old Facebook posts and community forum discussions showing a pattern. Karen would target neighbors with pools, file endless complaints, spread rumors, and create such hostile environments that families either stopped using their pools or moved away. But the most shocking revelation was about Karen's brother. While he did have a pool accident when they were teenagers, he hadn't drowned as Karen had claimed. He was rescued quickly and made a full recovery. In fact, the incident inspired him to become a swimming instructor. He now owns a successful swimming school in Florida and regularly posts about water safety on social media. Karen had been using an exaggerated version of her brother's accident to manipulate people for years. She told different versions of the story in each neighborhood they lived in, sometimes claiming he died, other times saying he was permanently disabled. Linda showed us recent photos of Karen's brother teaching swimming lessons, looking perfectly healthy. The HOA president immediately called an emergency meeting with Karen and Mike present. When confronted with all this information, including screenshots of her brother's swim school website, Karen broke down. Through tears, she admitted to embellishing the story but claimed she did it because she genuinely fears for children's safety around pools. She talked about having panic attacks whenever she hears children swimming and said lying about her brother's fate made people take her concerns more seriously. Mike sat there in shocked silence as the truth unfolded. Apparently, Karen had told him the same false story about her brother's death when they first started dating 10 years ago. He had even taken flowers to a fake gravesite on several occasions. Finding out that his wife had maintained such an elaborate lie throughout their marriage shattered his trust completely. The community was stunned. All those months of drama, the complaints, the bullying, the petitions, everything was based on a lie. The neighbors who had supported Karen felt betrayed and manipulated. The school principal, who we had to update about the situation, was especially troubled by how Karen had encouraged her children to participate in bullying Tyler using a false narrative about her uncle's death. Mike moved out the next day, taking Emma and Josh to stay with his parents. He came over to apologize again, this time with tears in his eyes. He said he couldn't trust anything in his marriage anymore and was filing for divorce. The kids were devastated and confused, especially when they learned that the uncle they were told was dead had actually been alive and well all this time. Karen tried to convince people she had been acting out of genuine concern, but no one was buying it anymore. She began skipping work, and we rarely saw her leave the house. The signs in her yard came down, and her social media accounts went silent. The petition website she had created mysteriously disappeared. The neighborhood atmosphere has changed dramatically. People who had avoided us for months now stop to chat and apologize. Several neighbors have asked to bring their kids over for supervised swim lessons, saying they realize now that proper swimming education is more important than fearmongering. Tyler, who had been deeply affected by all this, seems relieved that the truth is out. His school life has improved since Karen's kids stopped attending. Mike enrolled them in a different school to give them a fresh start away from the drama their mother created. The whole situation feels surreal, like something out of a movie rather than real life. But here we are, watching a family fall apart because of years of lies, all centered around a pool party that should have just been a happy memory for a teenager who had already been through enough. Update 3, it's been 6 months since everything started, and this will be my final update. A lot has changed in our neighborhood, and I feel like it's time to share how things turned out. Karen and Mike's divorce was finalized last month. After discovering Karen's years of lies, Mike couldn't reconcile with her despite several attempts at marriage counseling. He bought a house about 20 minutes away and has primary custody of the kids. Emma and Josh are adjusting well to their new school and occasionally visit us to swim, which feels ironically fitting given how this all started. Karen tried to sell her house, but it proved challenging. Turns out, potential buyers kept finding the old social media posts and community forum discussions about her behavior. Even after she lowered the price significantly, 3 different deals fell through when buyers learned about the neighborhood drama. She finally managed to rent it to a young couple, James and Maria, who found the whole situation amusing rather than concerning. They're actually great neighbors and often join us for weekend barbecues by the pool. The HOA used our situation as a case study to implement new guidelines about neighbor disputes. They now require documented evidence before accepting formal complaints, and they've set up a mediation process for resolving conflicts before they escalate. John, the HOA president, told me privately that they hope these changes will prevent similar situations in the future. Karen moved to an apartment complex across town. She still drives by occasionally, which we know because our security cameras catch her car slowing down in front of our house, but she hasn't tried to contact us or cause any more trouble. Last week, Mike mentioned that she's finally started seeing someone professionally about her anxiety around pools, which is a positive step, even if it came too late to save her marriage or her reputation in our community. Tyler has bounced back amazingly well from all of this. His grades stayed strong despite the bullying, and he made varsity basketball this year. The incident actually brought our family closer together. My parents, who were initially hesitant about pool parties after what Karen said about Tyler's parents, now come over regularly to watch him swim and hang out with his friends. The neighborhood dynamics have shifted significantly. The divide that Karen created has healed, and people seem closer than before. We've started a monthly community gathering, yes, often involving the pool, where neighbors can get to know each other better. It's helped prevent misunderstandings and brought back the friendly atmosphere we used to have. Sarah and I still host pool parties, though we've made some changes. We installed additional safety features like a better pool alarm system and underwater motion sensors, not because of Karen's complaints, but because we realized that promoting actual pool safety is more productive than giving in to irrational fears. We also started a tradition of holding a Water Safety Awareness Day each summer, teaching kids in the neighborhood about responsible pool behavior. Looking back, this whole situation taught me a lot about standing your ground while remaining compassionate. While Karen's actions were inexcusable, her story is ultimately a sad one about how unresolved trauma can destroy relationships and communities. I've learned that sometimes there are no real winners in neighborhood conflicts, just broken relationships and lessons learned. As for us, we're doing great. The pool remains a source of joy rather than conflict, and our home feels peaceful again. That's all I ever wanted, and I'm glad we stood our ground through all the drama to reach this point.